we do here. I'm Asieh, and I'm the executive producer for The Heat on CCTV America.
A land full of natural resources and ingenuity, where millions are embracing a vibrant middle class, divided by politics, but united by hope. Latin America is changing rapidly. Witness the change on America's Now.
U.S. President Barack Obama says it appears the Malaysia Airlines jet was shot down by a surface-to-air missile from an area controlled by pro-Russia rebels in eastern Ukraine. Obama spoke hours after U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power spoke at a UN Security Council emergency meeting. She says that if pro-Russian rebels are responsible for shooting down the plane, investigators can't rule out the possibility that Russia offered technical help. Both Moscow and pro-Russian militias have denied any responsibility. The U.S. ambassador also says Russia should take steps to cool tensions in Ukraine. To discuss the Russian perspective, I'm joined by Dmitry Babich, a political analyst for Voice of Russia, the Russian government's international radio broadcasting service. Dmitry, thanks for being on our program.
Thanks for inviting me.
So before we begin, let's listen to President Obama's comments from earlier today.
Evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by a surface-to-air missile that was launched from an area that is controlled by Russian-backed separatists inside of Ukraine. We also know that this is not the first time a plane has been shot down in eastern Ukraine. Over the last several weeks, Russian-backed separatists have shot down a Ukrainian transport plane and a Ukrainian helicopter, and they claimed responsibility for shooting down a Ukrainian fighter jet. Moreover, we know that these separatists have received a steady flow of support from Russia. This includes arms and training. It includes heavy weapons, and it includes anti-aircraft weapons.
Dmitry, was this plane shot down, and if so, by who?
Well, I think it's still too early to come to conclusions because even a day has not yet passed since that tragedy. And I would remind you that just several hours ago, the American side that American satellites have photographed the moment when the aircraft was shot down. It was shot down by a missile, but just a few hours ago, the Americans said that they couldn't detect where the missile came from. So it's really strange that President Obama now already knows that that missile came from the separatist side. But I'm not sure that President Obama can be considered an entirely impartial judge in this matter, because from the very beginning of the civil war in Ukraine, which itself became a result of the violent seizure of power in Kiev in February this year, the United States was 100% behind the government forces. So there was a little, I would say, hypocrisy here when President Obama says that other aircraft were shot down by the separatists in that area. Yes, but this aircraft was used to bomb the cities, including big cities like Donetsk and Lugansk, also smaller towns where the separatists, not only the separatists died, but also a lot of civilian population. So people were just protecting themselves from bombing when they shot down these planes. Of course, the tragedy with the airliner is a different matter, and I'm sure that Russia, if indeed it becomes evident that the plane was shot down by the separatists, Russia will condemn them and will condemn anyone who will be found
Dmitry,
guilty of doing that.
So if in fact it's determined that it was these separatists, these rebels that shot down the plane, where would they get this kind of sophisticated weaponry? Where would they get the missile from?
This is the biggest mystery, because the plane was going at the height of 10,000 meters, 33,000 feet. So it could not be shot down by portable missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, which the rebels use. and which are very good against helicopters or small planes, but which are no good against planes at this kind of altitude. You can shoot down these planes by the so-called Buk missiles, which are produced in Russia, but it doesn't mean much because the Ukrainian forces also use Russian-made weapons. 99% of the weapons used in this conflict are made in Russia because it was the same Soviet industry that produced these weapons. But in order to use Buk, you need several trucks. You need a radar. You need you need a big truck with missiles. So for this kind of weapon to be smuggled into Ukraine undetected, this is impossible. Just recently, there were reports by the rebels that they seized Buk missile from the government forces of Ukraine. But this news 3 days ago was rejected by the Ukrainian side. They said the rebels didn't take hold of some important parts of these anti-aircraft complexes. So it's still not clear who had the capability to shoot down this airliner at this kind of altitude. The Russian side suspects the Ukrainian army because the Ukrainian army once, unfortunately, shot down accidentally a civilian Russian aircraft in 2001 over the Black Sea during their military exercises. The Ukrainian side, from the very beginning, put all the blame on the separatists.
So let's talk about Samantha Power, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, who also spoke today. She said, if in fact it was the pro-Russian separatists who shot down this plane, and I'm quoting here, investigators cannot rule out the possibility Russia offered help to operate this system. Did Russia have any role in technical assistance? Could it have any role if in fact it was determined that the rebels did this?
Well, the problem is, if you ask me, does Russia want to shoot down civilian planes over the Ukrainian territory, I tell you no. Certainly, neither the Russian state nor the Russian population, none of us want to shoot down civilian airplanes. If indeed the plane was shot down by the separatists, which is not excluded, and the Russian media also discusses this possibility, if indeed it was shot down by the rebels, it was obviously an accident. They probably took it for a bomber or for some other military Ukrainian plane. The other big issue is, why did the plane go over their combat area? Normally, the plane should bypass the area where the combat activity is going on and where, as President Obama said, military aircraft is being shot down. So obviously, this was not very responsible from the Ukrainian side not to divert, airliners going through that area. It was going right over Donetsk, where most of the fighting is taking place.
But it was at such a high altitude,
Samantha Power's statement,
Dmitry.
I think it's a bit premature. Yeah. I think it's a bit premature, and this whole catastrophe, I think it should remind us that there is a real civil war going on in Ukraine. It's not an incident, it's not a small conflict, it's a terrible civil war. The areas which the Ukrainian army attacks, 11 million people live there normally. We already have 500,000 refugees in Russia, and this war is becoming now dangerous not only for Ukrainians and Russians, but also for the whole world.
Dmitry, I want to get to the Ukraine's intelligence agency. They say they have audio of intercepted phone calls that connect separatists to the crash. Also claims of responsibility from separatist leader who boasted on social media about shooting down the plane and later deleted those references. He said something along the lines, "We warned you, do not fly in our sky." The post was later deleted. Your reaction, sir?
Well, the problem is that the Ukrainian security service did a lot of fake reports before, and this is not the first time that minutes after the disaster they come up with some recorded conversation.
So you think this was a
the
fake?
problem is that I don't want to say that I'm 100% sure it's a fake, but I think it should be checked by some independent commission, because there is a real information war going on between Russia and Ukraine right now. On the Russian side, they also claim that they have a recorded conversation of Ukrainian servicemen who say that they accidentally directed a missile at a plane. So in this situation, I think you can't believe the Ukrainian special services, you can't believe Russian special services. They will come up with all sorts of recorded conversations, all sorts of supposedly deleted tweets. It should be investigated by a really independent commission, people who are not involved politically in the struggle between Ukraine and Russia. I'm not sure the United States or the European Union can serve as indeed objective judges in this situation, because unfortunately, as I told you, from the very beginning of this civil war, the EU and the United States 100% took the side of the government forces in Kiev.
Dmitry Babich, thank you so much, sir. And that's it for this edition of The Heat. We would love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and story ideas to The Heat at cctv-america.com. Once again, that's The Heat at cctv-america.com. I'm Asieh Namdar in Washington, D.C. Thank you for watching.